Welcome to the Navic Gaming Podcast, where it is our mission to explore the business and future of video games. We bring together the industry's brightest builders, investors, and thinkers to keep a pulse on current events, dissect emerging trends in games, share lessons learned, and have a great time. This podcast is also part of Navic's growing ecosystem, which ranges from free and premium research to consulting and advisory services. For more information, visit www.navic.co. This episode is brought to you by Heroic Labs, which powers some of the world's biggest games with its Heroic game stack. Its composable products are Nakama, the open source backend game server, Hero, the game development framework for all your live service game features, including the complexity of managing offline mode, Satori, the world-class live ops product for maximizing monetization and retention, and lastly, the Heroic Cloud to provide massive scalability. After nearly 10 years of operation, thousands of studios trust Heroic Labs to help them focus on their games and not worry about game tech or scaling for success. To learn more and reach out, make sure to visit heroiclabs.com or check out the link in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by TikTok. TikTok wants to remind you that Q5, the marketing period right after the holidays, is a prime season for mobile game publishers to maximize their impact and build momentum that lasts well into the new year. Q5 offers unique marketing efficiencies with up to 28% cost reductions in top markets, making it ideal for engaging audiences and optimizing ad spend. Powered by automation and precision, TikTok's advanced product solutions work seamlessly with its newest creative tools, making content creation easy, effective, and scalable to drive installs and boost in-game revenue. Learn more about making the most of Q5 with TikTok by visiting the link in the show notes. Make sure to check it out, and with that, let's dive into the episode. Hi everyone, I'm Navic co-founder and your host today, Aaron Bush. Over the years, we've had all sorts of interesting conversations about esports on this podcast. We've talked with the leaders of competing esports teams, event platforms, and of emerging tools and services. And along the way, it's been abundantly clear that esports is not only undergoing massive recalibration and change, especially with all that we see in the West, but the story isn't the same around the world. Saudi Arabia, for example, has remained bullish on esports and continues to make outsized investments that will leave a mark on the entire industry. One of those investments is through the Esports World Cup Foundation, which is building a massive annual event pulling teams and fans together around the world, all backed by a $70 million prize pool. Clearly, the world of esports continues to evolve, and to help me break down the latest and how the Esports World Cup fits into it all, is my guest today, Mike McCabe, the COO of the Esports World Cup Foundation. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Lovely to meet you. Sorry we can't be in the same room to do this.
That is totally fine. We're across the world from each other at the moment, but I'm sure the conversation is going to be super interesting nonetheless. And Mike, I am excited to dig into all things esports with you, and we'll spend most of today's conversation on that. But before we get there, I'd actually like to spend a couple minutes learning from your past, because before esports, you spent time doing other interesting things at other notable companies inside and outside of gaming. To start, at EA, you received global exposure and were involved in important franchises like FIFA. And I'm curious, what did you learn about operating in emerging markets through EA and at the forefront of emerging trends that set you up to succeed later as a games industry leader?
Yeah, it was a really interesting time. I had the fortune to be part of EA, both from a publishing and a studio standpoint, and really help build out both the publishing, but also the studio capabilities in a lot of emerging markets and building products specifically for those markets. I think the most interesting piece for me was really around the product and actually tuning both the product and the live service really to support the needs, the desires, the aspirations of those players in those emerging markets, because it was quite different, the way that people wanted to play with the game, some of the mechanics that we used as well. So that was the really enduring piece for me, was was identifying, talking to the community, understanding, looking at the products that were being successful in those markets, and then taking a product like FIFA or EAFC as it is now, and actually building something specifically for the market. And that was a unique opportunity, and it's rare to be able to do that with such a big franchise. But it was great that EA were really open to that, and we built a dedicated version of FIFA at the time to be able to operate in markets like Southeast Asia, and a slightly tuned version for Korea, and the same for China as well.
Awesome. And so after EA, or I guess between stints at EA, you were at Nike, where you oversaw digital products and innovation. And Nike obviously isn't a gaming business, but are there any compelling lessons you learned from Nike about winning in digital that you think games teams underappreciate, or maybe about how gaming insights are applicable elsewhere in ways that those outside the games industry might not know?
Yeah, it was a really interesting time. I was there for 4 years, and it was really interesting to see how a lot of the elements of game design and live service are relevant in other industries as well. And that's what Nike was specifically interested in. Personally, I was just interested in the brand and being able to take some of the vision that we had and some of the things that we did within gaming into an amazing brand like Nike. And what we saw was a lot of the mechanics that we built to drive engagement, to keep people engaged within an experience and bring them back and reward them, was directly transferable into the world of activity. And many of us sometimes struggle to stay active, and there's nothing better than taking some of those cues and bringing them across. And so it was really good fun to identify the things that worked and bring them across to help people be active in a healthy and a sustainable way. But it also was great to bring some of the community elements that are critical to game development, game operation, and bring them over as well to really be able to listen and understand. And we used a lot of that within the innovation space. It's sometimes a little too easy to bring technology for technology's sake into those types of situations. But it was really good to use the actual athlete or the consumers as the barometer there as to whether these mechanics made sense.
Yeah. Just a quick follow up on that. One big trend that people are talking about around gaming right now is just the idea of gamification, right?
Mhm.
Of other apps or services. Is that what you're talking about here? Or I'm curious, like maybe could you give like a specific example of like what you guys applied or learned?
Yeah, there was. I think gamification, absolutely. Leaderboards, rewards, those kind of recognition for achievements, but also content. I mean, what you and the team do in creating really engaging content. I think one of the other things that we brought across was that, and something as simple as giving people cues to help them through a journey. In the same way as when we're playing a game, sometimes we need cues to get through things or to optimize or improve. Same for running, how it should feel when you're running. If you cannot breathe and you cannot talk, you're overdoing it, back off. And so we built guided runs as something really, really simple, using distance or time-based cues or just checking in with people. So all elements really have that ability to transfer across, and it was really fascinating to bring those across. Um, I wish all industries developed at the same pace as the games industry when it comes to code development and creating and bringing features to life. But it was amazing to be there and be able to bring all of those some of those ideas across.
Cool. And your final career stop before joining the Esports World Cup Foundation was at Epic Games, where you oversaw international publishing between 2021 2024, which obviously has been an important time period for Epic in its own history, with UEFN, the Epic Games Store, and publishing itself becoming a bigger deal. And so I'm curious, like any memorable takeaways or lessons learned worth sharing from being at Epic during this time?
Yeah, look, it was a fascinating time to be there. Obviously, part of that was the COVID. the COVID period and a lot of the COVID boom within the games industry and being there then, and then seeing that chart through the correction that we've seen over the last 18 months or so. But there was a couple of things that were real standouts for me, and one was specifically within Fortnite, just seeing how different IP could merge and live in a persistent place together at the same time. That was, for me, was something truly unique in the industry, where IP had historically been very siloed. And so it was really fascinating to see how that could all interact, and working with those IP owners to be able to get into a place of comfort where you're able to have all of those things happening once. So I think that was one of them. And then you touched on the other one of UEFN and user-generated content, and the explosion that we've seen there, whether it be with Roblox or UEFN or other platforms that are there as well. This idea that almost as we created more and more sophisticated tools for people to create games, in parallel at this, we've got an opportunity for anyone to create a game and anyone to create an experience. And that democratization of creativity, I think, was something that's really fascinating. And I'm still really interested to see how that goes and to see what is the next huge breakout game that we're all playing.
Right. And we talk a lot about UGC on this podcast as well. And I guess you're also involved in the publishing deals like with Remedy and Alan Wake 2, which was one of my favorite games of recent times. So thank you for publishing that one. But let's go ahead.
Too scary for me.
It does have some scary moments. Those jump scares are still seared into my brain, a year or two later. But anyways, really awesome game. But let's go ahead and zoom to the present. And I teased it at the beginning, but can you tell us more about the Esports World Cup Foundation and what you are up to as its COO? And then we'll dig much deeper into everything going on with esports and the Esports World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. The foundation that we're all part of here and is a nonprofit and really part of one of the many strategies in the kingdom that are really pushing towards the growth of gaming, esports, and all of the elements within that. For us within the foundation, we're really focused on the Esports World Cup, and we have a few objectives there, really uniting the esports communities and the gaming communities for the biggest competition in the world. So really focused towards creating that Esports World Cup champion. It's a truly unique event because it's club based, and so we have a huge number of clubs who are joining that. We had our inaugural event last year, and there was a huge success with that first event. And we're just in the final phases of putting the finishing touches to EWC 2025,
which is in July. It's coming up pretty.
That's right, July 6th. Yep.
Oh man,
kickoff July 6th. Yeah.
Well, that'll be exciting. And so we'll get back to the nitty-gritty details of the Esports World Cup in a moment, but I want to zoom out a little bit first to get your thoughts about the global state of esports as a backdrop of this conversation first. So at least in the West, esports has been going through a challenging reset over the past 2 or 3 years, let's call it. Many team organizations and leagues raised too much capital, and they've had to deal with the repercussions of that, whether it's restructuring, making some type of big changes. Some have even shut down. And I know you're based out of Riyadh these days, but maybe starting with the West, like where do you see Western-based esports going from here?
Yeah, look, a great question. And I think to answer that, I'd probably zoom out a little bit first and just look at, honestly, the gaming industry as a whole. And so the gaming industry as a whole over the last couple of decades, we've seen a continual upward trend. Yes, there's been a couple of little corrections, but if we ultimately look at it, then we see ultimately an upward trend. And we honestly feel the same for esports. Esports has had some corrections, definitely, but we think that there's a significant amount of untapped opportunity when it comes to the growth of esports. And I think esports has really satisfied the endemic need for competition and the passion that is within that audience. But for us, we see the biggest opportunity in actually taking the fun of competition, some of the incredible stories that exist within the players, the communities, and the clubs, and really evolving that and connecting people. And so for us, when we look out, if we look in the next 5+ years, we see definitely growth there in the West, but also worldwide as well. And I think if you look around the world, you start to see some of those leading indicators, which are really demonstrating what I think is going to be a pathway for the West. And we've seen this so many times within the gaming industry where those initiatives don't necessarily start in the West. They have often started in the East and then find their way to the West in an evolved state, whether it be the advent of free-to-play gaming or a whole host of other things that have kind of started in different parts of the world.
Sure. So I guess we can talk about the global piece a little bit, because I mean, as you mentioned, and it's totally true, esports is very much a global business, and how it works in different parts of the world is just different, I guess. And I'm curious, like, as you've ramped up in this industry, like, what have you learned about how esports differs as a business, or anything else, in other parts of the world like Asia and the Middle East, that maybe can like pave a new path, or show the West that has struggled, a better or newer way of doing things.
Sure. I look from an Asia perspective, I'd probably point to China and see what we've seen from a growth within competitive esports there, and honestly, everything around it in China has been a huge development. And for us as the Esports World Cup, we've seen incredible success from a viewership, from an engagement standpoint in China as well. I think some of the things that have particularly surprised me and give me a lot of hope and anticipation for the future is going and seeing some of the events in China and being part of those events. I was at a Honor of Kings event recently, and the clubs there are on a different level when it comes to the support that they have. And what was fascinating for me were seeing the passion of those fans traveling across the country to see their club compete on the big stage. And it was very much like what I've seen with football, and seeing fans follow their football or their soccer team from city to city to be able to experience that. And so that level of fandom is unique. Also, when I look at the diversity of those fans and seeing the gender split as well, and seeing in many cases more women following those clubs than men is also really fascinating for me. So I think when I look at that and I see the opportunities for the clubs to build out their rosters, which we're obviously we want to support them, and that's one of the pivotal elements of the Esports World Cup, is to have multiple rosters to be able to compete, and we only see that increasing, which is fantastic. And then if we talk about the Middle East and seeing the growth here in Saudi Arabia, the growth of esports and the gaming industry as a whole, that's also really interesting. And seeing some of the big clubs locally, whether it be Falcons or Twisted Minds or Power, like the big three clubs that we have here, we're obviously seeing a lot of investment in other clubs being created as well. So I think that as we see that growth, and as we see the number of people who are not just playing games but also want to compete, it's really fascinating. And between those two markets, I think the other thing that I've seen that's changed is really the perception of being an esports athlete, and seeing the recognition. And it's an okay job to do, and actually people are encouraging if you have the ability to take part and play competitively, whereas when I was younger, that probably wasn't the case. And I love that there's now a recognition that these players have incredible skill. They're training like athletes in any other sport, and they have an incredible career opportunity, whether it be playing or casting or creating other career paths within the industry.
Right. Um, yeah, I guess when I look at this, I mean, there obviously is a lot to learn from all sides around the world. But I mean, just I guess to make like a East West comparison, it definitely does seem like the East they have like culture advantages and scale advantages that are just hard to replicate, and so some of it just kind of is what it is. But I mean, with how your company is positioning itself, and even much of the Saudi Arabian investments generally, it's interesting to see um, like a focus on one hand, consolidation of like, pulling together a better business by bringing events and stuff together under one hood. But also when you do that, such as with the Esports World Cup, you're um, you're like one location for all of the world to come together under one roof, one big event. And so I'm curious, I guess, just connecting this to um, like why Saudi Arabia is betting so big on esports. Like, um, as I mentioned, like much in the West has suffered. The East has a massive scale from just like a big population that is interested in esports. Why exactly is Saudi Arabia betting so big on esports? Like, what does it see from its vantage point, and like what is that opportunity?
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces there. A couple of stats. 70 close to 70% of the population are under 35, and of that population, close to 70% of that population identify themselves as gamers, um, which is which is there. So there's a passion, there's an inbuilt passion in the community here that people love games, and I experience this on a day-to-day basis when in everything you do in life and people you meet, people are playing games and they have played games their entire lives, and now they're playing games with their kids, and so on, and so it will continue. So this isn't this isn't an anomaly. This is something that you have an entire country who predominantly identify themselves as gamers. I think coupled with that, you have from a government standpoint and from a leadership standpoint, there's a recognition that let's connect passion with investment. Let's connect passion with opening up an element and a large portion of our GDP against the games industry, because it's always great to do something you love. And so that kind of fostered as part of Vision 2030, the creation of the National Gaming and Esports Strategy. And that has a whole host of goals, whether it be jobs focused goals of 39,000 jobs by 2030 or 50 billion contribution of GDP. But it's within 13 different sectors, of which esports is one, of which the one that we're involved with directly. But it covers every other sector of the industry as well, whether it be from a development standpoint, from a support, from ultimately running events as well, and content creation. So it's really an investment across the board, and as a result of that, there's organizations such as ourselves who are running events, but then you have the likes of EFG who are running events globally, or Savvy who are investing directly in game studios like Scopely and many others as well. So it really kind of hooks back to that national strategy. And to my knowledge, there's no other countries in the world that have actually put it down and said, yeah, we are going to focus on this. This is a national strategy, and we are going to invest and resource this in such a way that it can be successful and compete on a global stage.
Right. The government backing is very unique, especially with the scale that it's operating at. So, I mean, I've been interested in following, Saudi Arabia's moves in esports and broader gaming over the past few years, and I imagine we have many more years of watching all of these investments unfold and continue to evolve, which will be really interesting to see. One last bigger picture question for you before we dive more specifically into your business, which is how do you think the next decade of esports will look differently from the past decade? Where are we going with all of this?
So I think we're gonna. If I look, yeah, it's always fun. 10 years out, I think that the core DNA of competition, people love competing against other people. This has been there since we started walking around this planet. Whether we're running faster or we're throwing something further, whatever we would be, competition is it is wired within us, and so competition will continue. I think the content that we compete with, I hope that we evolve and we have more genres that we're competing in, and there's new and exciting games that we have to master. So that would be one. I think that's more of a wish rather than necessarily a pathway. The other thing that I think is going to change within the next 10 years is something that I think we've been waiting for a while, and we've hoped it was going to happen, and it hasn't necessarily happened on its own organically. And that's really the move of competitive esports into a more mainstream audience. And I know I've tried this in the past and it hasn't been successful, but I think that we've learned now, and we've seen other sports who have been able to open the aperture. They've been able to look at the cues honestly, from the gaming industry and from entertainment and from other sports, and be able to build that path to a much more mainstream audience. So for me, I think that is probably going to be the biggest delta. And that's something that we are absolutely committed to and really investing in and experimenting, because, not everything will be perfect and work first time, but we feel that that is critical for the success and the growth for
Yeah.
us over the course of the next 10 years. And then to reinforce that, you've got the likes of not just what we can create within the event that we're doing at the moment and what the publishers are looking to do and what we do within entertainment, but is that other institutions like the IOC are now recognizing that competitive gaming is something that they want to be involved with too. So the idea of the Olympic Esport Games is something that obviously we're working very closely with them on as well.
Gotcha. Um, maybe you could talk about that a moment. I actually don't know much about the Olympic esports games. What is the latest on that, or how is that working? What should we expect from the Olympic esports games?
So we're working on that in the process, or we're in the process of working on that with the IOC at the moment. And really, it's a pathway to really open the aperture of esports. Is exactly what I was saying. And the idea there is that we take some amazing games that people are playing, and we're able to bring that sense of competition in a slightly different way. So obviously, it won't be club based like the other esports tournaments that we generally operate. It's going to be nation based, and so we think that there's an incredible opportunity for nation based gameplay again to open that aperture. Um, if you think about the Olympics, and when you're watching the Olympics, I don't know about you, but there's certain sports that I will sit and watch during the Olympics
Of course.
purely because there is somebody British competing in that. And I don't understand necessarily everything about that particular sport, but I will cheer that person on. And so we see that as being another avenue for us to bring nation based esports into the ecosystem where whilst it's existed, it hasn't necessarily broken through. And the tier one athletes haven't necessarily been competing in those environments. So we're working on it with the IOC at the moment. We're incredibly excited to continue that partnership with them, and we as a founding partner in that OEG is something that obviously we're very committed to.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But okay, let's go ahead and dig more into the details of the Esports World Cup. First of all, can you maybe just break down in more detail what all happens at the Esports World Cup, which, as we mentioned earlier, begins in a month or so? Like, what makes it such a notable spectacle compared to any other esports events out there?
I think though there's a few things. So for us, bringing the best games is critical. And you mentioned this earlier, the idea that we bring multiple titles from the biggest publishers in the world and put them under one roof. last year, the team operated over 8 weeks with 21 different games, 22 tournaments that we operated. This year, we'll be doing 24 games with 25 tournaments over 7 weeks, because we don't like to make it easy for ourselves. We want to compress it a little bit. But that first want to bring in the best games that people are playing from around the world. And so we have great representation of games that are huge in the West, some that are huge in the East, some that have just got global appeal as well. So we can really bring all of those incredible IPs together. The second is the fact
quickly,
that it's sure.
Can you name some of those big games just to get so people have some context? Like, what are the big ones?
Absolutely. So League of Legends, Valorant, EAFC will be bringing Crossfire this year, which is a new title.
Yeah.
We'll also be bringing chess this year, which is a
Yep.
new title.
Cool.
But we have a whole host of what would be considered traditional esports games like StarCraft and Dota, but then also bringing new games that we feel are an opportunity for us to open the aperture. And then when we look at Asia and we see games like Honor of Kings and MLBB being huge, having huge resonance in China and Southeast Asia as well. So really, we want to have everything from BR to MOBAs. We've got sports games, we've got strategy. So we feel like we've got a really good mix. And then in addition to that kind of club competition, so we've got those huge games. We've invited, and we'll have over 200 clubs competing as part of the tournament. And the concept's really interesting because each club can have multiple rosters and they compete in as many different games as they want if they qualify. And ultimately, whoever is able to amass the most points from all of those different tournaments that they compete in will ultimately be crowned the Esports World Cup champion. And so that's the pathway. So huge games, the best players. We have an incredible prize pool that we'll be bringing. Last year, it was just over 60 million US. This year, it'll be over 70 million that will be provided to players, to clubs, all the way across that ecosystem, really with the objective of supporting the growth and the stability of the gaming ecosystem in the community.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's cool that you're working with so many different games, like pulling games together across publishers, across leagues, all in one spot. Like, that strikes me as, a big deal. And then second, just a follow up to this, could you maybe share, like, I assume, you're pulling all of these people together, bringing them to Saudi Arabia to compete. Like what is the event on the ground look and feel like? Maybe you can even just share some details about last year's event, like for those going or those interested.
Yeah.
Like, what is that like?
There's a lot of logistics. So we had over 1,500 players from 100 countries last year. So there's a lot of logistics on the back end. But look, we try to make it as seamless for people to get here, whether they be a fan or whether they be an athlete. So we're trying to create pathways. And for us, on-ground participation is something critical. So we obviously care massively about the viewership, and we want to be able to broadcast and share this worldwide. And we had over 500 million people watch the Esports World Cup last year, and 250 million hours watched across all of our platforms and distribution streams. But the other element is people being here, and we had over 2.5 million people cycle through all of our venues over the course of the 8 weeks last year. And it's a combination of a couple of major things. One is the Esports World Cup, the competitive esports across all of those different games. And the second is the festival. So we have a huge festival which is running in parallel with the competitive element, the club championship, where people can celebrate gaming, everything that is gaming, whether it be actually taking part in a community tournament or play tests or seeing their favorite IPs and understanding and learning more. There's a whole host of different elements that we have there. A lot of experiential gaming opportunities that people love playing, but we want to level up the play. And so because we have that amazing platform for multiple weeks, we're able to really create some compelling, really, really fun activities for people to come as a family and really engage with it. And so that's the focus for us, is building that festival in parallel with the club championship. And this year, we're really focused on creating weekly themes around the IP that will be happening in any given week. There may be a sports focus or a mobile focus, but the idea to create multiple opportunities for people, whether they be in the region or locally or traveling internationally, to come for multiple opportunities to see, experience, and engage with a whole host of these different opportunities.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that sounds exciting. Hopefully, I can check it out one day
You're
myself.
welcome. You're welcome.
It sounds really fun. But also, I can't imagine just putting my business hat on. I can't imagine how much organization goes into making a big event like this happen every year. And as COO, I bet you're involved in countless logistical details here. So I think what could be interesting is just for you to peel back the curtain a bit and share some of what goes into making this event happen operationally. Like, what are some of the crazy things that it takes to bring this all to life?
Yeah, well, we touched a little bit on logistics, and there's a
Yeah.
couple here. One, we are incredibly lucky that we have um, incredible support from basically the rest of the kingdom. Um, our partners, government stakeholders, everybody kind of pulls together. So I'll be honest, it's a real team effort, and that makes it a whole lot easier because it takes what may be red tape in other parts of the world away, and really everybody is has a concerted effort against the goal, which is making this as big and as fun and as engaging and as seamless and easy for people to enjoy as possible. So that's the good bit. That's
Yep.
the like we're all in this together fun bit. The challenging bit is just the sheer scale and the duration. And it's it's a long event. When you look at other multi-sports, multi-week events, they don't last 7 or 8 weeks. The Olympics does not last that long. So for us to be able to uh, build that capability and build the flexibility for us to be able to cycle things in and out, whether it be the games that are being played or those festival activations that are tied to a specific theme. We need to be really agile and we need to be really nimble in the way that we think about these things and we create them. And then the last piece for me is honestly is the jigsaw puzzle of pulling it all together. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for the publishers. We wouldn't be able to do this if it weren't for the amazing games, the amazing clubs that come here and compete. And so basically playing that jigsaw puzzle of being able to make sure that what we do is additive to the ecosystem is critical. So every game that is taking part in the Esports World Cup already has their own calendar. They already have their own competitive calendar, and we have to find a way to fit ourselves in where this doesn't impact, doesn't detract from what they're doing, but is always additive. So I spend a lot of my time on all three of those pieces, on navigating and making the connections, on being able to support the logistics of getting all of these things to fit together. But ultimately making sure that we keep an eye on really on the fans, the clubs, and the publishers, and just making sure that what we're doing and have that constant check and balance. Like, is this helping? Is this a good thing? Is this making it better? Whether it be from a fan experience or from a publisher to open up a new market or open up a new audience for them. So yeah, I'll be honest, keeps me out of mischief, keeps me busy, but it's look, it's amazing, and I've loved every minute of it, and I think it's a unique moment and a unique opportunity. So yeah, it is has its challenges, but I very much love it.
Well, that's awesome. And Are you guys in partnership or interface with ESL Face It at all, which is obviously part of Savvy? I'm just curious, like how that might connect for you guys, since you're both backed by Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, EFG are one of our key partners, one of the partners that helps bring it to life. The scale of the operation and the scale of the tournament is so huge that we we can't just have one partner. So we have many partners, and EFG are one of our integral partners. They helped us last year with the inaugural EWC, and they're helping us again this year. And so yeah, we start planning. Well, I'll be honest, we've already started planning 2026.
I bet.
So we have to keep one eye here, and definitely we're already starting to look one eye in the future.
Yeah, I saw you guys are at least confirmed through 2027. I think I read on the website somewhere, but that's awesome. And obviously, just to hit on Saudi Arabia, maybe one last time here, the country has made big financial bets across many sports at this point, and from my perspective, it sort of seems like your $70 million prize pool echoes similar aspirations. I'm curious, is there any truth to that observation? Like, is the Esports World Cup aiming to grow the esports market and capture market share in a similar way that these other Saudi backed sports leagues have attempted to? Um, or am I just making incorrect assumptions there?
Yeah, look, this isn't a market share play. This is not something that that is the focus. The focus for us as the foundation, as a nonprofit, is really in support of the ecosystem. And so for us, we see ourselves very much as a catalyst for growth and for sustainability across the whole ecosystem. And this is supported, and that's why that prize pool is not, it's not exclusively player focused or club focused. It's supporting the full ecosystem, and then we're building that in partnership with the publishers. So that's where almost a little bit what I was getting at before, of just making sure that what we do is additive, and what we do is being able to support and help the growth. And I guess another example of that is the club program, because we know that, and you mentioned this earlier, that we've seen a lot of investment in clubs. We saw corrections. Some people have struggled, and we see that. And we see that the best way for clubs to be sustainable long term is by having diversity in the IPs that they're supporting, that their games go up and down. Teams are successful and sometimes they're not. So being able to have more rosters across more games helps build that long term sustainability for them. And for us, the club program, we support, this year we're supporting 40 clubs through that club program, where we invest in those clubs directly to help them build rosters, to help them really build that solid foundation that is a sustainable foundation that they can grow from, rather than being a huge investment they build out and then they've got a burn rate which is just not sustainable. And so for us, we see this as much more than a market share play. This is an ecosystem play, and we are passionate. Like, I work pretty much all of my career in gaming. We love games, and we love building out the capability so more people can not just enjoy them and play them, but make a career in engaging within the industry.
Right. Could you tell me a bit more about the nonprofit elements of this? As you mentioned, the foundation reinvests the proceeds from the event back into the sector, advocating for the esports industry. Can you tell me more about what that means? Like, why is this structured as a nonprofit? And can you tell me more about what you are reinvesting into? And you mentioned like how some of the prize pool goes beyond like the players and teams. Like, where else does it go? Just talking about this in a bit more detail would be really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And as a foundation, our goals are not financial. Our honestly, our KPIs are building the ecosystem, building viewership, building the number of visitors that we have coming into the kingdom here. And so we really are building towards a self-sustaining model. And so we obviously have support from the government to help us build, but we also work with a whole host of commercial partners through sponsorship and through other mechanics that we've seen within the industry as well. And so when we're focused as that, there's a couple of things. So one, yes, profit is not a priority, but it also positions us that we're not actively trying to make a profit, and therefore the partnership with the publishers is a collaborative one as well. That they're not necessarily thinking that, okay, this is a margin play, because it's absolutely not. It's about building that foundation, and from our, whether it be the IP agnostic nature of what we're creating, it's just not about profit. And so the prize pool, yeah, it's one part of it, that we're investing into the success of the tournament, all the way through the qualification, to the clubs themselves, to the individual players, to bounties and other things that we can really see that to sustain that operation. I mentioned the club program as well, that is unique from that perspective as well, and that's something that we started last year. We'll continue to invest in that. We've scaled it up this year as well, and as I say, we have 40 clubs that are up from 30 last year, and we've got up to $1 million of funding coming to those clubs during the course of this cycle.
Yeah,
and so really we look at it along that way. We have, obviously, as I say, really great support from the government as well, who are invested in, as part of that national gaming and esports strategy. We see investment coming from there as well.
cool. And I guess one final question on this before we begin to wrap up. Tell me about the future. Like, what do you envision for the future of the Esports World Cup? Like, what does long-term success look like? What does improvement look like? You just talked about some of the goals and aspirations and maybe some of the metrics that matter, but maybe you can unpack what you aspire for in the future a bit more.
Yeah, it's easy to say it's about being bigger and better, but look, it's a lot more than just scale for us. We want to be much more efficient in the way that we're actually operating, and we're able to be a lot smarter in the way that we do things. So we make sure that they're as impactful and meaningful as they can possibly be. But there's a couple of different areas when I look at improvement, and the first one is really probably around structure and access, in the way that we really want to be able to bring more people into the event, and we're doing that through the creation of pathways, through different qualification pathways around the world, to be able to have more clubs, more players from diverse backgrounds being part of that, and building connection with the creator community as well, so we can have more people come and experience the event firsthand for themselves as well. The festival, we launched with the festival last year. We're doubling down with that this year, bringing a lot more structure to that as well. I mentioned the themes based on a weekly basis, of being able to switch and evolve those themes over the course of the 7 weeks of competition. But really, for us, we see that as a massive opportunity for us to really create a celebration of gaming. We've been to, I'm sure you and I have been to so many game shows around the world, and have experienced different things in different parts of the world. And we're trying to bring as many of those different elements into one place, so people can really celebrate that convergence of entertainment. We've got, whether it be through music or gaming, pop culture, everything that we've got coming there as well. So that one is really an opportunity for us to open the aperture and really have a family-friendly event that everybody can come to. And the last piece is really around more connectivity and really connecting people in the way that makes sense for them. And so when we're building the experiences, we obviously have a core esports audience, and we know how they consume esports and what they want to do, but we really want to open the aperture on that. We really want to create much more of a mainstream experience that we can have people enjoy competitive esports and the tournaments that haven't necessarily engaged with that. And so a lot of that is going to be on the broadcast products that we create, the way that we position it, the way that we package it, and to create those moments like the incredible opening and closing ceremonies to be able to bring people to an event and have them experience it in a way that they've never experienced it before.
Awesome. Well, I really look forward to seeing where you all take this. And as I mentioned earlier, I hope I can check it out in person sooner than later. But I have three quick final questions for you before we wrap. First one being just what are you personally most looking forward to? Like, do you have a favorite event that, that you're looking forward um, to attending or bringing to life this year?
Um, I love battle royale, so I'm going to be particularly excited to see some of those games and the scale of those as well. But look, I was lucky enough to be part of some of the Esports World Cup last year, and honestly, just seeing the passion. I'm most excited about seeing people's smiling faces and people running to get in and to see and really soak up that excitement. And so yeah, that's for me. It makes it all worthwhile for the team when they see that, and makes all of the late nights and the hard work and the missed weekends worth it when you just see the passion and see the celebrations and see how much it means to people as well when they win these tournaments. And here's some of the personal stories. And we just announced yesterday a documentary that we're releasing on Prime Video, and so we're starting to
Cool.
try to find more ways that we could share some of those incredibly personal stories for people, so that more of us can connect and really understand how much of a difference, or how tough it is sometimes, but also how much of a difference some of these opportunities make.
Amazing. And then, I mean, obviously, we talked all about esports today. You're completely dialed in on esports day to day. But what else in the games industry are you excited about these days? Like when you look around, what piques your interest?
Look, I love playing new games, and I love seeing where the creativity is going. So I think what excites me about the game industry at the moment is seeing some of the great content that's coming out in the months ahead. And I think that for me is the most exciting thing, and seeing how we're seeing this evolution and seeing the evolution of gameplay. I really hope that we continue to see new IPs. I really hope that we continue to see new gameplay mechanics coming as well. And I really hope that, as we've seen the advent of UGC, as we start to see some really material, highly engaging games within that UGC world actually break through and start to jump out. And so there's a lot to be excited about. There's more people playing every year. With this is a one of the few trends in the world where it's going upwards and to the right consistently, because every day there's more people playing games, and that will continue to be the case, because we know that the new generation who are joining us and who are going to be coming up, like, games are integral to their entertainment and their social life. So yeah, I there's a lot to be excited about, and it's going to be great to be part of that journey.
Totally. And I think some of these UGC games popping off is is already happening. I think like as we're speaking right now, there's like a gardening game on Roblox that's been like hitting, I want to say like 8 to 9 million CCUs. Like it's just absurd what some of these games that, a lot of people haven't even ever heard of or will never hear of are doing. And that's, it's still early days in so many ways. But final question for you, if anyone would like to reach out to yourself or your organization, and we have a bunch of listeners that are leaders of their own companies all across the games industry, where should they go? How should they best reach out?
LinkedIn's probably the easiest. Either feel free to reach out to me personally, or definitely the foundation's page on LinkedIn. They're probably the easiest way to connect with me or part of the broader organization.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up here. Mike, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you today and learning all about your world of esports. And best of luck with the big event and I guess a couple months from now.
Yeah, thank you. It's going to be a busy few weeks for us. We launch on July 6th, and it's going to be an amazing 7 weeks of everything.
Yeah, can't wait. And to all of our listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. It's a pleasure having these conversations for you, and we'll catch you all in the next episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, whether on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, or give a 5-star review. And if you want to reach out or provide feedback, shoot us a note at podcast@naavik.co or find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Plus, if you want to learn more about what Naavik has to offer, make sure to check out our website, www.naavik.co. There, you can sign up for the #1 games industry newsletter, Naavik Digest, or contact us to learn about our wide-ranging consulting and advisory services. Again, that is www.naavik.co. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.